Welcome to day 442 of our DeSo journey. I'm Ed Krasenstein here with my twin brother Brian. And remember, these videos are sponsored by NFT Tech. They are an investor in DeSoFi. So
Hey, let me
yesterday,
just cut in. This is actually our 400th straight video. I think we started on day 42 of our DeSo journey. So this is our 400th straight Web3, I guess you could say now Web5 related video.
yeah, Web5. Yesterday, Jack Dorsey, the co-founder, or I guess the founder of Twitter, decided to launch Web5. You know, he's skipping over Web3, skipping over Web4, and just going right into Web5, right?
Seems easy enough.
Really, Web 5 is kind of like created out of the combination of Web 2, what we're currently in, and Web 3, where we're going. So when you combine those two, you get Web 5, I guess.
I would have added them and then divided by two and called it Web 2.5, but I get where he's coming from.
Just doesn't sound as exciting. He wants to be better than Web 3. I think that's what he's going for. And
I,
I
I I
say
think
he,
he wants you to just like confuse everyone and everybody be like, well, Web 5 is definitely better. I mean, Web 3 is the next big thing, but Web 5 has to be the next big thing. I want to just jump right to that.
of course, Web 5 would have to be better than Web 3, right? But it's not really
I
Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey's not the one who's, creating this. He's behind the project, but a lot of this was actually developed by Microsoft dating back, I think going back to like 2019. Microsoft started working on the Ion layer 2 blockchain that's built on top of Bitcoin. And that kind of is what most of this is from, it appears.
Yeah, so it all started with Microsoft. It appears that Block, the company that Dorsey is now the CEO of, hired some of these Microsoft people who developed the Ion protocol or the Ion layer two, and they're expanding upon it. It's at least what it appears.
Yeah, so Web 5 was just announced yesterday by Jack Dorsey for those who are completely lost here. And it looks to allow users to have an internet identity, or I guess you don't even have to say internet identity, just an identity that can be used for various things. And it puts you in control of that identity and the data that is associated with your identity. And it does this by utilizing Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blockchain. It's actually, like Brian said, Ion, which is a layer 2 built on top of Bitcoin, but it functions the same way as Bitcoin does. So what Bitcoin is doing with, I keep hitting my mic. What Bitcoin is doing with money transactions using the ledger on the blockchain, Ion does with user identity. So the user identities are on the blockchain running basically on the Bitcoin protocol, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. But yeah, go ahead.
So currently in Web 2, where we're currently at, I guess some people might consider we're like Web 2.2 or 2, maybe even 2.5.
I would say we're like 2.264.
I think that's a little too far. I'd say more like 2.318.
Hmm.
But so currently in today's conditions, no matter what you call it, Web 2, Web 2.238, whatever, people don't actually own their own data, and they don't own their identity, really. You create an account on Twitter, create an account on Facebook, but you don't actually own that account. Twitter does, or Facebook does. There are blockchains like DeSo that have come out and given you 100% ownership of that identity. So I think what Web 5 and Jack Dorsey are trying to do here is a lot of what DeSo has already accomplished. Is a little different, though. So what they want to do with tbDEX, which is their protocol, is put individuals at the center and empower them with self-owned identity that has control over their data. And there are blockchains out there already doing this, like DeSo, decentralized social. You create your identity. All your data is on the blockchain that you post. Your identity is on the blockchain. Your follower graph, it's all on the blockchain, on the DeSo blockchain. But Jack
Yeah,
Dorsey apparently likes this idea too.
yeah. So Jack has been kind of a critic of Web3. uh, for quite a while. He's been known to go in these like tweet conversations and attack Web3, and he sees it as Web3 still being controlled by the VCs who are buying the underlying coin associated with them. So, like, if a VC came in and invested in DeSo, for example, say Coinbase Ventures bought a bunch of DeSo, they're really partially in control because they own a large portion of DeSo. That's the way he sees it. So this the way he's doing this, it's taking the whole coin aspects out of it. You don't have this separate token or coin that is associated with this protocol. It's built on top of Bitcoin. So I think that it in a way legitimizes what DeSo has done and is doing, but it's doing it in a different way. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I would kind of consider Jack Dorsey to be a Bitcoin maximalist. He doesn't really like these other cryptos. He focuses on
Right.
Bitcoin. Thus, they're building on the Bitcoin blockchain rather than, creating their own new blockchain or building on a blockchain like DeSo that's already out there, which has already accomplished a lot of these things, maybe even all of these things that Jack hopes to do. But I guess we should define what Web 5 is, not just, Web 2 and Web 3 elements mixed together. The way they define it, the way Jack defines it, the way tbDEX defines it, is quote unquote the centralized web platform, DWP, enables developers to write decentralized web apps, DWAs, using decentralized identifiers, DIDs, and decentralized web nodes, DWNs, returning ownership and control over identity and data to individuals. So I know it's probably, this is probably pretty confusing to understand to
A
most
lot of
people.
new terms, a lot of new abbreviations, but DIDs essentially they're decentralized identifiers, and they're self-generated, they're self-owned. There's no centralized proffers or trusted authorities. No special utility tokens or that are sub, subjective consensus. They're highly resistant to all forms of interdiction, and these IDs can be made universally discoverable. So basically, you have this ID that's associated with your identity, and this ID can actually be pulled up on any, I guess you could call it node or any app, web app that wants to pull it up. So you have this identity that is decentralized, you own it, and it's portable. So you can bring it to any app you want that is running this protocol, and it automatically pulls all that data into it.
Yeah, and tbDEX is their goal is to make on ramps and off ramps between crypto and fiat more accessible to the masses. So they want to, you know, allow for these on ramps and off ramps. They realize that there's regulation involved. Different jurisdictions are going to have different regulations. So they don't want it's not all in the blockchain where it's completely trustless. There's going to be some trusting needed because of these regulations, and they don't want to break certain laws based on different jurisdictions. uh, Ion, like I said earlier, was created by Microsoft, and what Ion does is it stores your identity in the same way that Bitcoin stores transactions. Your personal data, however, this is on Ion, and I don't know if Jack's Web3 and tbDEX's stuff is going to change any of this, but the way Ion currently works, as far as I know, as far as previous updates that have been put out explain, is that your personal data, such as your name, age, and other personal data, is going to be tied to your ID, but it doesn't appear as though that data is actually stored on a blockchain. It doesn't appear as though that data is going to be stored like your ID is being stored on Ion. Your data is separate. Like, and
Yeah,
I think it's either off chain or maybe Jack's Web 5 solution. I know they're talking about these personal nodes, I guess, or like nodes that store that data that can kind of exchange with other nodes.
yeah. We don't know if like how much Jack is changing Ion. He's definitely adding a lot to it. Whether he's changing the central part of it or not, we don't know. From what I can tell, is that each user will store their own data, their own identity, and all that data associated with it, and then it's somehow pulled into the blockchain when it's needed. Is
I
that how
don't know if
you
I would say it's pulled into the blockchain. I think the IDs are on the blockchain, and those IDs give other apps or other nodes the ability
the
to
permission?
access that data if you give them that ability, if you give them
Right.
permission. And so Ion, the way Ion works is that your IDs are anchored to Bitcoin's blockchain using IPFS. Again, I don't know if this has changed since Jack has kind of taken the lead on this, and has how since tbDEX has kind of changed things around, but that's how Ion worked. And up to 10,000 ID requests can be processed in a single transaction on Ion, which is quite incredible, I think.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that they're probably going to look to scale that as well. If Dorsey's rolling this out and he expects it to gain mass adoption, they're going to need even faster, more. They're going to probably need more IDs or faster blocks. Uh, I don't know what they're going to choose there, but it's going to be interesting to see how he scales this. Ion, of course, is a couple years old. It was a work in progress back in 2019, but I would assume that they've made extensive progress on this in the last 2 to 3 years. I know Jack's likely been working on this for years.
Yeah, so I mean, like Brian and I don't understand all the ins and outs of how this works. I don't think anybody really does yet, outside of like the core team behind it. But like I read the white papers, I viewed some of the diagrams, I reviewed some of the tweets that were put out about it, and to me, it seems to open the door for non-blockchain assets to be able to be transferred via the blockchain. So what I mean is, like, here's an example. You could use your DID, which is your decentralized identity, and verifiable credentials, which they refer to as VCs, to link a bank account to that DID, your identifier, and then you can use the blockchain transaction to, let's say, for example, for a home, you could have a home transferred. Another DID could transfer that home to your DID, where the title will then be in your name on the blockchain because it's been transferred. It's now under your DID. Maybe I shouldn't say on the blockchain. It's going to be transferred to your from one identifier to another identifier, which are on the blockchain. But that could be stored by the bank. It can be stored in other nodes that are outside of the blockchain.
Yeah,
And
and like I read probably 6 or 7 articles about this, and none of them completely understand how it's all going to function once it's totally finished, or once it's rolled out. I think they're aiming towards for like July 1st to really kind of have some things public, but I think that's a really good guess, or I guess educated guess, as to how things will work.
yeah, so how do you think this all ties into Elon Musk buying Twitter?
Yeah, so like this is the first thing that popped in my head. Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk, I would say they're friends. They've communicated in the past. They participate in roundtables together. Jack Dorsey no longer owns Twitter. He no longer is the CEO of Twitter. Uh, he he obviously had communication with Elon Musk. It would be beyond my belief if Elon went in and decided to make this purchase of Twitter without knowing what Dorsey was working on with this Web5 thing. So, knowing if Elon Musk knew Dorsey was working on Web5 and this identity, this verified identity, these credentials, and all of that, why would he buy Twitter unless he had a plan to maybe utilize some of that technology within Twitter? Because in my mind, Web5, this what Dorsey's doing right now, is a competitor in some ways to Twitter. So did Elon tell Dorsey, hey, I'm going to offer to buy Twitter and I'm going to integrate Web5 into Twitter. You don't have to do it. You're running your own block company. What do you say? And did they decide on this before Elon made the offer, or is this just a really odd coincidence that Dorsey's doing rolling out basically his own decentralized identity of for social at the same time that Elon is buying or trying to buy his old company? I don't know. What are your
I
thoughts?
don't know if you can say it's a competitor to Twitter, because I don't think, Web5 is just this, it's essentially a protocol, I guess you could call it, that is going to enable other apps like Twitter to tie into an identity. So I don't think it's a competitor at
Yeah,
all.
no, I'll go back on that. But I do think that there are some areas where Web5 could be utilized by others to create kind of a competitive environment with Twitter, unless Twitter was to do
Yeah,
something similar.
it could hurt Twitter. Like, it definitely could hurt Twitter if another social media website is built based on DIDs. But at the same time, I think Twitter could probably pretty easily implement DIDs on their own once this is all ready to be used. Uh, I don't know if Elon knew, because remember, if you recall, Elon did talk about some different things, like how you could pay a subscription, a yearly subscription, in order to essentially get a blue check mark next to your name, and that would help solve problems because everybody would be verified.
Yeah.
You'd be using your real name, real credit card information tied to that name. So I mean, I think that idea is kind of counter to what these DIDs do. So I don't know if, Elon has a different idea, and they're like, okay, let's see. I have an idea, you have your idea. Let's see which one works. I don't know. I mean, it is kind of bizarre that Elon wouldn't know about this beforehand.
The timing is just kind of crazy, but yeah, I agree. And I just want to say, like we're always talking about DeSo, and the show is mostly about DeSo. I don't think it's necessarily a negative for DeSo. In fact, I would say it kind of adds backing to what DeSo is trying to do with decentralized identity and decentralized social. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that the two could work together. We'll see. Well, I'd love to hear what Natter's thoughts are on Web5 and what it may or may not mean for DeSo. I think that's important to hear from him, because the backing of Jack Dorsey, something like this is huge. There's no denying that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be building on this and trying to work with Web5. So I think it's important to at least consider the ramifications of what Web5 could mean for DeSo, whether it's good or bad, whether it may be neutral. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So you sent me a clip bit of text this morning. I don't know exactly where you got this from. You can maybe tell me after I read it. But here's an example, and this is why I think it might actually be good for DeSo. This is an example of what Web5 can be used for. Alice uses her wallet to sign in to a new decentralized social media app. Maybe DeSo? However, because Alice has connected to the app with her decentralized identity, she does not need to create a profile, and all the connections, relationships, and posts she creates through the app are stored with her in her decentralized web node. Using Web5, Alice can switch apps whenever she wants, taking her social persona with her. So, to me, DeSo could potentially integrate Web5. Maybe, instead of using DeSo identity to sign into DeSo, you could use Web5 to sign into it. Maybe you could use either. Maybe you could use both. Maybe they could be tied together. Um, I don't know. Like, where did you get that text that you sent me this morning?
Okay, so the text came from an article I read from the Indian Express, but I'm 99% sure that they just took this example out of some of the slides. You had some examples too in that you took
No,
from
yeah,
slides from Web5.
it was definitely taken from tbDEX, or from the
Yeah,
website.
because they use the same names for
Yeah,
the examples.
Alice. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. No, and I think that's a really good point. I think that I think that what could happen is that DeSo could be just one of these I guess, protocols that use a that are using this new identity layer or this new protocol. So like DeSo could take it, use it, integrate it, just like people are integrating DeSo.
Is your dog eating somebody?
I don't know why my dog is barking, but it's a pain.
All right, so I guess it's time to move on from Web5. It's definitely something we're going to follow closely, and it's going to be interesting to see how it matures. But let's get back to some other things. DeSo last night, and into this morning, there were some DeSo node issues, and they've been affecting a lot of the nodes. I know DeSoFi was down for a bit, Social World was down for a bit, NFTZ is having some syncing issues that are continuing. We still had some issues since the whole Postgres stuff that hasn't exactly been fixed yet. So there's definitely some issues going on there. I talked to Martijn Van Halen, M. Van Halen on DeSo early this morning, and he kind of explained some things to me. He believes that some change from core related to DAO order limits appears to have triggered a new build on the core backend, which essentially created a hard fork. At least that's what he believes has taken place. And it's been causing some hiccups. I don't believe anybody knew this was going to be taking place, so it kind of left everybody, stranded this morning on a weekend morning. But I think things are starting to get better, but I think there are still some issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not good to wake up on a weekend and have issues like this. Nobody feels like dealing with them, of course. But hopefully they rectify it and we can just move on. Of course, it's early. People are DeSo has some problems with syncing every now and then. Hopefully, we can get past this pretty soon.
Yeah. And
So
DeSoFi had some stats, right?
yeah, DeSoFi posted some pretty positive stats yesterday. Of course, they rolled out their app a couple days ago, and they said that over the last 2 days, they want to show off some of the statistics from that new app. In total, 423 unique users, used the app in the first 48 hours. 8,000 sessions were counted. 1,541 posts were made. And here's an interesting number: 150 tweets were posted. So, of course, the new DeSoFi app allows you to also post to Twitter. So that's pretty big because 150 tweets. That's 150 tweets that could be bringing people back to DeSo. Um,
I love that.
yeah, and I'm sure we're going to see this number gradually increase as people connect their Twitter accounts to their DeSoFi account.
Yeah, I love that. I just do.
Uh, Also, Mubs had a post yesterday with an announcement about Wallow. Wallow is his NFT app that he's been working on for some time now. But he said a new build of Wallow has just been pushed to test flight. So if you have test flight, you can try that out. He said it fixes some performance issues with a large number of NFT holdings. He's still working on this. It's a gradual process, but I'm sure there's lots to come from Wallow.
Yeah, I love what Mubs is doing. He has so many different projects that he's been working on in the Web3 space and on DeSo. He keeps updating stuff, pushing new updates out, making his stuff better. So just congrats to Mubs once again. So the DeSo Community DAO, which we are part of, has approved revisions to their second proposal. And this is really an interesting one. Previously, the idea was that there's going to be 30 DeSo Community DAO individuals in the DAO, and over 30 days those 30 individuals would be selected. But because it is a DAO, that DAO can make decisions, and that DAO has made a decision. So now any DeSo account can become a member of the DAO by acquiring DAO tokens, which is really cool. They can be acquired from existing members by participating in funding rounds or making a contribution to the DAO. To start just in the beginning, the only contribution that will be rewarded in DAO tokens will be a proposal that's co-authored by somebody who has enough DAO tokens to meet the threshold required to submit a proposal. So in the future, the DAO can raise funding. The individuals who are in the DAO can sell their DAO coins. They could give DAO coins out. It's an interesting concept, and I think I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm reading. I'm in the Discord a lot. The last couple of days I've been really busy, but there's a lot going on in the Discord. There's a lot of proposals. Darian Parrish is doing a whole heck of a lot of work here. But yeah, I like where this is headed, and I think it could be have really big implications for DeSo in general.
Yeah, and currently the current DAO members, other than us, are Darian Parrish, like you said, Goldberry, Randir, Daniel Wilson, Mr. Triplet, Tyne, Grace Baseme, Michelle Lord, One Dolinsky, Gabby, Daniel Wilson, Sandy Rose, Malsified, who's also a member of the core team at DeSo, Stargeezer, William Laurent, Darisha Vire, and like I said, us. But that number is going to grow, and I think it's probably going to grow quite significantly over time. So
Yeah.
congratulations for this change. I really like it. I know we abstained from the vote. We, like Brian said, we've been really busy. We're actually going away this weekend, so we've been tying up some loose ends. But C2, and I don't know about C2 underscore DSO. I don't know if it's set to or C2. I'm guessing it's C2, but or it could even be Say2. I don't know. I'm really bad at some of these names. Uh, they're teasing, quote unquote, something exciting is coming soon. So their website, which is c2 underscore dso.web.app, advertises that they help creators launch into Web3 and port content from Web2 to the decentralized social media seamlessly. So it appears you can log in on their website with your DeSo account, and then you can link your social media accounts, your other social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, I don't know, probably any social media account, and then sync your content. I haven't tried it. I don't even know if it's functioning for sure yet, but they have something exciting coming, and I can't wait to see what it is. They're run by a team of 8 people, which I find quite impressive. It's a really big team running this project. So I assume it's going to be something really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I guess we'll see. But just before we end, we want to get to the top hashtags. Number one was Web3, followed by Post to Earn, NFT, DeSo, and crypto. Thanks to Open Prosper for those.
Yeah, and the top diamonded creators from the last 24 hours.
Yep. Thanks to Alton Base, we have this list. It's Stargeezer, followed by us, Krasenstein, followed by The Social World, Shady Acres, Now and Then, The Devil, Vampire Campfire, Mashalin, Lil Lover, and Darian Parrish, who we just spoke about.
Yeah, congratulations to all of you. Everybody have a great rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you tomorrow.